I never thought I would ever say this in my life, but I think I'm all Spider-Man out at the moment. I think I'm good on Spider-Man at the moment. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
I'm Michelle.
This is our post-Geekout reaction for Into the Spider-Verse. You all know what this movie is. If you're on this channel, you don't need me to inform you about this. Yeah, so I will just start and say, I really like this movie.
So do I.
I am kind of amazed that it's got like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment. Not because I don't think it's good. I do think it's good, but I look at this and I'm like, how... It really seems like there should be a huge chunk of the movie-going audience out there that would just be like, oh, this is just too silly for my taste. Just the harumph crowd. And I'm kind of shocked that even the harumph crowd is like, no, I really like this thing.
Yeah, and it's like the only, the one douchebag who gave this a bad review is because he didn't like the animation.
I saw that, I was like, oh, then you're just wrong. I mean, it's an opinion, but you're wrong.
Animation is gorgeous.
There's only every now and again, I hate starting out like a negative, every now and again, it would get fuzzy on purpose, and I didn't really like that.
Yeah, but like that was...
But that's like 0.001% of the animation in this movie. Everything else in here is jaw-droppingly gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like, it was supposed to be like that anyhow, so it's like, it's just...
I know, those are like the one scenes where everything comes to like a screeching halt for me. The rest of the time, it's just great. Yeah, this is stunning, and I have said many times before that when it comes to the Academy Awards Best Animated Feature Award, I've always said that should not judge the quality of like the storytelling and the acting and the directing. That should be a technical award that judges the creativity and how well they pulled off the actual animation itself. And when the Oscars finally decides to make that what the best animation thing is, because otherwise there's no freaking point to making a best animated feature thing, because then if an animated feature gets nominated for best movie of the year, you automatically know who wins. But anyway, that's a whole other side rant. But if that is what that award was for, hell yes, this thing nailed it. It absolutely deserves to win because this is incredible. And man, I gotta applaud Sony for being so willing to just go completely nuts with the animation. Just going, you know what? Just do whatever you want to do. Like, you can tell this was not in any way affected by a boardroom outside of them just going, the kids love Spider-Man, give them as much Spider-Man as you can. Like, you can tell, like, someone came into them with a pitch for a Miles Morales film, and they were like, well, we were reading this comic book called Spider-Verse. It's got a whole bunch of Spider-Man.
I want pictures of Spider-Man.
I want Spider-man in my movie. That's
more Spider-Man.
That's like literally the only thing in here that I can look at and be like, well, that's where the boardroom touched it. Aside from that, you can tell the boardroom just went, I don't know what the heck to do with this movie. Give it to the most creative people we can find. Like, I was looking up the people who actually worked on this film, because I knew Phil Lord worked on it. And he was the guy who was behind the Lego film. And it was him and another person in there. But he's the guy from the Lego film that they pulled in for this. And I just looked at him like, well, I have gone on record numerous times as saying, this could work as a film, but I think the odds of it working are incredibly slim simply because Miles' origin story, that's great. Do that as a film, that's wonderful all on its own. Throwing Spider-Verse into a movie, that's a little bit weird. Merging the two together, okay, this is like blowing up the Death Star, how this thing could work. But if there is anybody out there who can make something like that work, it's the guy who made a product placement film, one of the best movies of the year. But everybody else on here, I was looking at the animators, and one of them is one of the animators behind that, the Little Prince film that they had on Netflix not too long ago that looked absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, there's just insanely talented people working on this thing. This is absolute proof that everything out there can work. No matter how crazy your idea for a movie is, if you get the right people on it, it can absolutely work. Because throughout this entire film, I was looking at this going, this is great, but man, I am spying so many areas where this could have been screwed up. I'm spying like so many spots in here where this could have just completely fell flat on its face. And it doesn't. Everything in here absolutely works. I do, have like a few nitpicks here and there. But yeah, this is an absolute success of a film. And again, as I said, when you look at this on paper of we're going to merge Miles Morales' origin story with the idea of many alternate realities, Spider-Man all being thrown into something all at once, like how's that going to work? How? And they found a way. Yeah, Phil Lord is like life. He finds a way. Yeah, but this, I need to go ahead and ask you, because you're not exactly the average moviegoer. You live with me. You have some kind of knowledge of all these characters and such. But you have far less knowledge of like the Spider-Man characters than I do. Like
you're way more familiar with
Spider-Man's my guy. I've put this on record many times. Not only am I a huge comic book fan, but Spider-Man is my guy. So I know all this stuff in here. Although I will say there's tons of Spider-Man Easter eggs in here. Oddly enough, the Easter egg that I flipped out the most for had nothing to do with Spider-Man in here. Did you like, it has something to do, we'll save it for the spoiler part. We'll save it for the spoiler part after we give our score. But it has something to do with an obscure 90s cartoon. Did you catch it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yes. way back in the 1980s. Yeah, okay. For anybody who doesn't know, who hasn't seen the film yet, and you don't want to know what the Easter egg is yet, but you still want to look out for it. Around the middle of the film, there will be a moment when they're in Times Square. There's a bunch of great parody billboards in there.
Yes, there are.
There's tons of great ones. Like, I honestly want to go back and just freeze frame on all that. Like,
it's definitely one of those kind of films.
yeah, you would think that me being the big Spider-Man nut, I'd be like, no. When they get to Spidey's secret headquarters and there's all those costumes and gadgets everywhere, that's where I want to freeze frame. No, I spied almost everything in there instantly. I'm sure there's something way in the background that I missed, but no, all that stuff in Times Square, that's the stuff I want to pause on. Because there were great ones in there. There's one I saw online that I could not spy in the movie because it moved past it so quick, but it was the poster for Shaun of the Dead, but it just said Dawn of the Shaun. So it was like a Shaun of the Dead sequel. And I was like, God damn it, that's so smart. That is so smart. So yeah, whenever it went to that, I was like, well, no, we're out of it already. Damn it. God. So yeah, that I want, when this comes out on Blu-ray, I want to pause on that all the time. But yes, so back to my question. I'm accustomed to the idea of tons of alternate reality Spider-Men coming and crossing and doing all this crazy stuff. How did you approach, like, how did you feel about the story? How did you feel about all the wackiness and the crazy Spideys and all that coming in?
I was like, I kind of wish they had like the other Spider people got more screen time, to be honest.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get into that because, as I said, there's so many ways in which the idea of merging Miles' origin and the Spider-Verse together could go absolutely wrong, and they were able to make this work. However, I still stand by saying they shouldn't have done that. I still stand by saying, no. Make a Miles movie. Then you can do a Spider-Verse thing in, like, the sequel, after we've all established that, and then you introduce everybody else in there.
I guess so, but, like, at the same time, I feel like everyone is kind of sick and tired of the Spider-Man origin.
Well, see, now I think that Miles' origin is very, very different, because it starts with Spider-Man dying.
Yeah.
So I think that when you do that, it becomes a completely different storyline. It becomes because Spidey's origin, Peter's origin, is all about, how do I learn to do this? Miles' origin is, how do I live up to this guy? And it's a very different setting. And Miles comes from a very different background. His home life is very different. His school life is very different. So, yeah, I think that people would have been okay with it because it would be like, yeah, you've seen the Spider-Man origin. You've never seen it like this. But, yeah, but I wanted a whole film that was just Miles. And cramming the Spider-Verse in there, they were able to find a way to make it work.
Yes.
Because basically the whole message of this thing is that, yeah, man, anybody can be Spider-Man. That's kind of the whole point of it, and they were able to tie that in there at the end. And I love that message in there because that's always kind of been the whole point of Spider-Man. The thing that made Spider-Man different from so many other superheroes out there, especially for when he was created back in the 1960s, is he was meant to be the Everyman. He was supposed to be like just the average Joe living on the streets. He wasn't a super scientist. He wasn't an alien. He didn't have godly powers. He wasn't an adult with his whole life put together out there with a big fabulous career. No, he was just an average Joe. And then throughout his entire life, he has just been average guy. So yeah, the entire point of Spider-Man is that everyone can be him. So I really enjoy that is the message of this. And they were able to merge the Spider-Verse storyline in with Miles because Miles is, well, can I be Spider-Man? Oh man, how do I learn to do all of this stuff? And then, you see all these other people in there who are all completely different from each other, and it becomes very clear, oh, okay, well, you know what? We all have our own way of doing this. but we're all connected by some stuff. So it's like, okay, they were able to find a way to make it work. I still kind of agree with you. It feels weird that there's so many Spider-Men in here, and very few of them actually get like a lot of screen time. And I feel like that kind of hurts Miles' story a little bit because it takes screen time away from him and his origin. But then it also kind of hurts the other Spider-Man because like three of them, Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Peter Porker, Spider-Ham, yeah. They all get introduced like with half an hour left in this movie, and they're just like, we're all here now. And it's like, I get it, but yeah, I think it would have been better if we had like a whole movie based around each of these things. Like, I mean, make Spider-Verse the sequel to the Miles Morales film. But yeah, even though I think that would have made, even though that's what I would have liked to have seen, judging the film that we got, I do have a problem with the fact that each character is kind of taking up each other character's screen time, but it still works. And a lot of that comes down, in my mind, to the older Peter Parker in here. Because he has his own entire storyline going on in this thing. And it creates a very unique setting for Miles. Because in the beginning of this film, we're going to spoil a little bit in here, but it's Miles Morales' origin story in here. You kind of know something that happens. Miles, in the beginning of this, he meets his universe's version of Spider-Man, like right after he got his powers. And his universe's version of Spider-Man, he's young, he's in shape, he's got his whole act together, and he tells Miles, listen, I gotta go and save the world right now. But when I get back, we're gonna work everything out. It's all gonna be great. I'm gonna train you, teach you the ropes a little bit, teach you how to do what you need to do. And then he dies. Which I am stunned they did that. I knew that was part of his origin story. But still, the idea that they were like, we're going to make a Spider-Man cartoon. There's going to be a lot of kids in the audience. We're also going to kill Spider-Man in it. It's like, holy cow, I can't believe they actually really did that. Like, I thought he was going to get, like, blooped away into, like, that big portal thing. And it looks like he dies. And then at the end, he shows up and is like, I'm fine, everyone. That doesn't happen. He's gone. And he is gone in a brutal way. I was genuinely kind of stunned with how they took him out. But then a portal gets open. Many other spider people come in there, including another version of Peter Parker, who he's been doing this for an additional 10 years. 10 years longer than the other Spider-Man had been doing it. And him and Mary Jane broke up. He lost all of his money. He's just kind of a sad sack sitting around all day in sweatpants. And now it creates this great setting for Miles because Miles is like, man, this big hero, this big A-class amazing hero, I have powers like him, and he's going to teach me how to do what he needs to do. And then he dies, and in his place is a schlub who's like, I don't want to, no, just stop, whatever, kid, just, God, I'm done with this. Yeah, it is a very unique story that could not have been told any other way. The only way you could have a story like this is if you merge Spider-Verse and Miles. So even though I would rather have had Miles' origin and Spider-Verse as separate things, they found a very unique story that could only have been told if you merge these things together.
Yeah, and I think the animation helps with this story in particular. Yeah. It's like if this was just the Miles Morales story without like the multiple dimensions and everything else, and they still kept the animation, it would have still been very nice looking, but it's like because you are experiencing like other characters with unique designs and everything, it really does demonstrate how great the animation is and really puts it to the test.
Yeah, this is freaking gorgeous animation. Because, yeah, you've all seen it in the trailers. You know that Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Ham and Penny Parker, they all have very different art styles to them, and they're all animated in completely different ways. Like, Penny Parker, she's actually animated. I mean, like, she's drawn like an anime character, and then in the trailer you see her, like, flipping around, like, the whole, like, action lines and all that. They go one step further, and even when she talks, like, it's very slightly off lip sync.
Yeah, like dubbing. Like English
it looks like it is dubbed. And it's like, God damn, they really thought all this stuff out. But I think the other reason why this really works, and in fact, I'd say the main reason why this works, is the combination of heart and humor in this. Which if it's Spider-Man, that's kind of what you need to have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the two biggest parts of Spider-Man, humor and heart. And loss, which there's some of that in here too.
Yeah, like the other Spider people explained to Miles, like, we all have to lose something. That's part of our job.
That I honestly thought was a great moment in here. We won't go into too many details on it, but yeah, it's like I said, Miles' story starts with his universe's Spider-Man dying, and there's a moment in which he is feeling pretty sad about a loss that he has had, and the other Spider-Man are like, yeah, man, if anybody out there can understand, it's us, because this is actually part of the job.
Yeah.
It kind of comes with the territory. So yeah, I thought they handled that incredibly well. But let's see. One of the other things that I really enjoy about this, I feel like we don't even really need to go into the storyline all that much.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, as I said, I know my audience. You all know who Miles Morales is. You've seen the trailers. The trailers do kind of set you up for what this movie is going to be.
Yeah, pretty much.
But one thing that I absolutely love about this movie is something that I really feel like any future Batman and especially Superman movies need to realize. We know who these characters are. Like I said, I feel like the non-geeky community out there, if they watch this film, is when it gets to that moment where like all the other Spider-Man are coming in there, they might look at it and be a little bit like, wait, what now? But then again, I don't know. The non-geek community has now been exposed to superhero movies that have complex continuities that go from one to the next for 10 years now.
You know, and I think because this is open to the general public and including the non-geeky community, I think that's why they included the wackier versions of Spider-Man later on, and didn't
saved it. Yeah,
exactly. It's
they need to set up the base of Miles.
Yeah, yes, and it's like, okay, there's Miles, there's Peter Parker, and there's Gwen Stacy. These are the three like most normal, average Spider people, and then you got these wacky characters over here who are also part of the Spider multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they definitely saved them because I do think that the average audience out there would have had a harder time dealing with an entire movie based around them when they had no exposure to them.
Yeah.
But also, it's because you need to set up the Miles' story, they need to set up the relationship between him and the older Peter, but also you need to set up like the third act the third act theme of anyone can be Spider-Man, which that's the theme of the third act because in that part of the film, that's when they bring in just anybody. There's a pig in there. There's this little girl who's got a robot spider. There's this guy from the 1930s in there. So yeah, that was another reason for saving it until then. But like I said, I'm curious to see how average audiences out there are going to deal with it. But as I was watching this, you know, we saw it in the trailer. There is the moment in the beginning in which he is fighting the Green Goblin. And he's going, come on, Norman, and he's like referring to him as Norman. And like, I love that this movie did not have to like stop and explain to anybody who Norman Osborn is. They didn't have to tell him any of this stuff. Like, no, you all know this by now. You've seen the other movies. You know what's going on. You know how all this works. But like Wilson Fisk is in there and like, they didn't really have to explain much about Wilson Fisk. I mean, they do give him some backstory, and his backstory that they give him, like his reason for doing the evil things he's doing right now in this movie, man, it's actually really good. Mm-hmm. And Wilson Fisk, you want to talk about great animation here? He's probably my favorite animated character in here.
Oh yeah, it's like
he is literally a wall.
Like, seriously, like, especially when they do, like, the close-up on his face.
And it's just a face in the middle of, like, blackness.
Yes, because, like...
It's so good.
Because he's all in black, but, like, because of the way he's animated...
He's got, like, his shoulders up here.
Yeah, he's like a silhouette with just a face in the middle. Like,
and I love that because it makes him look like he is a massive threat, because it makes him look like he's just this immovable object there. Mm-hmm. Which that's what the Kingpin should make you feel like. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love that they didn't really have to explain much about him. Like, nobody ever even stops and goes like, Wilson Fisk, he's the Kingpin of crime. Like, no, he's doing bad stuff, but he's also appears to be leading a legitimate business in there. Yeah, they didn't need to come in here and explain to us like, yeah, but secretly, he's actually the bad guy. And it was like, no, we've all seen Daredevil. We know who this guy is in here. But it goes even further than that. Tombstone is in this movie just as, like, Kingpin's number 2 guy, just standing next to him the whole time. And it's like, Tombstone is not an A-class Spidey villain. I mean, he's not, like, D-list. He's actually, he's done some stuff. People kind of, people in the comic book community know who he is, but, like, the general audiences out there don't really know who Tombstone is. He's never been in anything outside of the cartoon from, I don't know, 20 years ago at this point. Yeah, they didn't stop in here and go, oh, the reason why there's a white, chalky-looking guy walking next to Wilson Fisk all the time. Like, no, it's Wilson Fisk. He's got a supervillain with him. We're good. We don't need anything.
It's like, yeah, he runs all these experiments and tests, and, like, this is probably, like, the result of some of that stuff, so it's like...
Which is not his origin, but again, I don't need to come in here and go, well, actually, what his real origin is. No, you got that he probably has some kind of superpowers because he looks weird. And Wilson Fisk probably would have a weird-looking superpower guy next to him. Done. So yeah, I love that this movie embraced that. And I was watching this, and I can't remember the exact moment. I think it was the moment that this one has not been in the trailer, so I will save this one for everybody out there. But there is a moment in here in which they meet someone, and I know that I revealed Tombstone was in this, even though he wasn't in the trailers, but that's not a twist. Like, he's literally just walking there. There is one character in here who is revealed to be a twist. There is one character in here who they're like, wait a minute, this is an alternate reality. Are you this universe's version of... So I'm not going to spoil that in here. But I love that when they kind of come to that realization about, are you this universe's version of... They don't have to stop and turn to the audience and go, that's a bad thing because this character is actually this. No, they know that the audience knows who that particular character is. So yeah, I freaking love that they were able to just realize audiences can roll with this stuff now. Like I said, when it comes to the Spider-Verse side of this, I'm still kind of curious how general audiences are going to deal with this. Like, there was a lot of parents in there with their kids, and the parents were giving their kids that little, like, post-movie talk where you can tell the parents have no idea what was going on. Like, my kid was happy, so screw it. It's like, oh yeah, all right, so that was, okay, that's great, sweetie. Yeah, wonderful. Like, I heard a lot of parents in there doing that. I was like, hey man, the parents weren't upset. The kids enjoyed it. Great, perfect, wonderful.
Yeah, it's like, I'm glad, like, this movie understands that, like, the audience can roll with it, especially considering, like, the Monster Hunter movie coming out.
Oh my god. I've already talked about that enough on this.
It's like, hey, imagine a world where all this, like, no, we get it. We don't need this whole reality meets fantasy bullshit. Just, we can roll with it. We get it. Like,
she heard me recording that video for, for like 2 weeks. I was working on that video. So yeah, she knows all about that. Yeah, like those upcoming Monster Hunter things, it's like, well, audiences aren't going to be able to accept this world full of monsters unless we have a normal human person going in there first. Like, literally the entire point of Monster Hunter is people hunt giant monsters. There couldn't be a simpler fantasy world. But yeah, it's crazy to me that, like, they were willing to just, like, go with so much in here. Like, they didn't have to stop and go, here's Aunt May, here's this, here's that. It's like, no, literally everything just comes at you in this movie. So yeah, also the cast in here is fan-freaking-tastic. And this is one of those casts where you're just going to, did I say task? This is one of those casts where you are going to constantly, when the credits are rolling, just go, oh my god, it was that guy? It's this guy? Oh, I didn't know it was that person. Okay. Because I knew who played Miles and I knew who played Peter in here, but I didn't know who was going to play the Miles Morales universe version of Peter Parker. That's Chris Pine. I was trying to place it throughout the entire movie. I really freaking could. And man, he absolutely was great in that role. But yeah, this guy, he is just going down the geek checklist. He's got Star Trek, he's got DC, now he's got Marvel. Let's see. Liev Schreiber was Wilson Fisk, which I never would have guessed that one either. Catherine Hahn is in here as a character, and she is great. Nicolas Cage, we all saw him in the trailers, but this is one of my favorite Nicolas Cage roles. I love that Nicolas Cage has finally hit that point in his career in which he's just like, I know what people want from me. I'm just going to do it. He and Jeff Goldblum are like in that perfect sphere right now. We're like, I know my audience, and I'm having fun playing to my audience. John Mulaney, we all knew he was Spider-Ham. He knocks it out of the park. Zoe Kravitz was Mary Jane. I thought that was Elizabeth Banks. I was way off on that one. Maybe it's because we saw a trailer for the Lego movie right before this. Lily Tomlin is Aunt May, which is actually kind of perfect. That was actually amazing casting in there. But here's the one that really got me. Miles Morales, he has his Uncle Aaron, who, for anybody out there who isn't a comic fan, I will not spoil what's going on with Uncle Aaron in there. But I thought that they pulled that twist off great in here. Although I kind of feel bad now even saying that there's a twist in there. But it was played by Mahershala Ali, who was excellent in this. But Jake Johnson as Peter Parker, he may be my favorite Peter Parker we've ever gotten. Because, A, I'm sick and tired of kid Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Tom Holland was great in that movie. Tom Holland is is it Tom Holland? Am I saying someone else? There's a lot of Toms working in Hollywood right now. But the MCU version of Peter Parker, he's great as kid Peter Parker. I think that he nailed that. But I'm sick of kid Peter Parker. Like, I grew up with adult, responsible Peter Parker who actually had, like, his shit together. I kind of want to see that again. And granted, this version of him does not have his shit together.
Well, he had his shit together, but then it started falling apart, like...
Yeah. But that's the thing about Peter Parker. The perfect version of Peter Parker is the one half, I've got my stuff together because I'm an organized, responsible person. I was trained to be responsible, so I am responsible enough to have my act together. And the other half of Peter Parker is, I also have the worst luck in the entire world, so all the responsibility that I worked my butt off to achieve is constantly being torn down. So it's a unique balance in there. And what's unique in here is that Jake Johnson is only playing the I have the worst luck in the world version of Peter Parker. But Chris Pine, even though we only see him for about 5 minutes, plays the I have my stuff together because I'm a responsible human being version of Peter Parker. So I feel like if you mash those two together, you would have the ideal version of Peter Parker. It's like, you know what, I'll take a movie that gives me just both halves. Like, even if you can't combine them both, the fact that both of them are in this movie, even if they're separate people, that's all right. I can take that. That's pretty cool. All right, that's awesome. I'll take it. So yeah, but then we also have to talk about Miles Morales by Shamik Moore, who, what has this guy been in? Oh, he's the guy from Dope. I knew I recognized that name. Okay, wow, I did not think that was him. Sorry, that's actually like a big realization on my part. Wow, I didn't know he was the guy in Dope. That's actually great casting. But yeah, that guy, I think he's gonna be a breakout star. Because he already did Dope, so he's got the indie cred on his side. Now he's got the superhero thing on his side, and this is going to be a franchise. I have no doubt this is going to be a success. If this is not a success, but Venom was, there is no justice in the world. We are in the wrong reality right now if that happens. But yeah, this guy is going to be big. Like, you don't get enough of a sense of his range in the trailers. Because the trailers, it's mainly focusing more on the other Spider-Man, which is kind of a shame, because this is Miles' story. But in here, yeah, it is Miles' story, and you get to see a lot of range from him. And I love the vulnerability that he shows, because that's another side of Peter Parker. I'm sorry, that's another side of Spider-Man, is that because Spider-Man is the Everyman, he's kind of that embodiment of you're brave when you walk past your fears, or however the phrase goes. So yeah, Spider-Man, no matter who he is, should not be someone who is just brave at all times. Spider-Man should be a guy who gets exhausted, who gets worn down, who gets tired, who gets afraid, but then still keeps going. And man, Miles captures that perfectly in here. But anything else that you want to say about this film?
If I do, then it'll probably start going into spoiler territory.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. There's especially a lot of like Easter eggs I want to point out in here. That's all spoiler stuff. So I will just say, really like this film, but I will say I think it has a little bit of a balancing problem.
Yeah.
With the fact that it tries to have so many different Spider people in there at once. I honestly think that the story that they came up with of, oh, the big responsible A-class superhero is going to train me. Oh, he's dead, and I don't know how to live up to his legacy. oh, now there's a crappy version of him around. I think that is a very unique story, and we've never really had an origin story like that. And I think that that's great, but I think the moment that you add in there Gwen, Penny, Noir, and Spider-Ham, it's like, there's too many cooks in here. And I love Gwen in here. I loved Spider-Ham. I loved Noir and Penny. I had no idea what to expect from her from the trailer, but she's great in this as well. All of them are fantastic characters. But yeah, man, I think that this is a case where I would have liked it to go a little bit simpler. And because of that, I'm going to give this an 8.5. What about you?
I guess so, maybe a 9, or I don't know.
I think you don't have to second guess yourself.
But no, it's because, like, I don't know, like, I'm not entirely sure, like, how I would judge it. Like, I'm not entirely sure what my scale is.
That's fair. Only you know what your own scale is.
Yes.
But yeah, so like a 9 from you, 8.5 from me. So,
yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. But yeah, this was an absolute blast. Really enjoyed this film. And if they bring it back, which, again, this thing, it's going to be big. They're definitely going to make other films of this. I'm really hoping that they continue to get Phil Lord in here. Because there's definitely those moments in there in which you can tell this is all him. This is what he was doing in there. However, I don't want to downplay all the other people in here, because that's the amazing thing. I thought Phil Lord did this by himself. No, there were like 3 or 4 different writers. There were 3 different directors on this thing. But you can look at and also tell, oh, this is probably where that person, like when I look at this person's other things that they've done, this is probably what they did in there. Although I will say a couple of the writers in here, I was looking at their past stuff, and I'm still kind of amazed that this thing turned out as well as it did. They must have done an early draft of this thing that, like, some of the other writers came in and was just like, well, we're throwing out every single part of this. But yeah, so this thing, it is, honestly, even though I don't know if it's going to be in my top 10 movies of the year list, it's one of the most amazing movies of the year. Because, as I said, this is one of those films that you just watch it and you're like, oh my god, how did any of this work? But it does work. So kudos to you on that. But okay, time to get into spoiler stuff in here. What was it that you want to talk about that you said might lead into spoilers?
What was it that I was going to talk about? I completely forgot.
Well, the Easter egg that I absolutely loved, that was like a geeky thing for me, was there's a poster, giant billboard for Clone High in here.
No, it's Clone College.
Okay, because I didn't read it fast enough. I just saw Abe Lincoln and JFK in there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh god, it's gone.
Yeah, it was like basically in like an alternate universe where like Clone High
kept going.
Yeah, kept going, and they eventually went into college and stuff. It's like, we're living in the wrong universe.
I would honestly love it if Phil Lord came out and said, listen, the whole reason why I agreed to do this is because Sony said that they would pay for some Clone High extra shows. Maybe get that up on Netflix. Actually, Netflix, seriously, go to Phil Lord and see if he wants to do more Clone High. He probably does. Man, that was one of those shows that I did not like when I was a kid. When I got older, I love that show. So yeah, there was that reference in there. Trying to think of, like, there was a bunch of like the Spider-Man Easter eggs when he goes into Spidey's home base. But honestly, it's like, well, there's this costume. Like,
speaking of which, I really like how Aunt May in Miles' universe is like really cool about
can I just come in here and freaking say, I am done with old frail Aunt May. I am done with the Aunt May who's like, oh, Peter, if I ever found out that you were keeping a secret from me, I don't know if my heart could take it. No, there was a time in the Spider-Man comics, it was like from 2001 to like 2008, where Aunt May actually did learn that her son's secret identity, well, actually her nephew's, it's her son. But there is that moment in which there was like a period of time in the comics in which she did know his secret identity. And that was some of the best years of Aunt May, because she was actually, like, helping Pete, and she was actually, like, cool with all this stuff, and, like, Pete now had someone to talk to about this stuff. And then in the Ultimate Universe, which is what this is based on, which in 2000, for anybody who doesn't know, the Ultimate Universe, Marvel decided they were going to create a separate universe of books. They launched, like, 3 or 4 titles, and they were all set in a universe where these characters had not been around for 60-plus years. They were starting fresh right now. And in that universe, yeah, it was a secret from Aunt May for a while. Then Aunt May learned about, and then Aunt May, again, was cool with it. And she was helping him out with all this stuff. Yeah, man, I'm tired of I can't let Aunt May ever know about this. let Aunt May freaking know about it. We're all totally cool with Aunt May knowing about this. In fact, even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at the end of Homecoming, spoiler for a completely different film, but at the end of that movie, she finds out he's Spider-Man, and I was like, God, thank God we're not gonna do this shit for another, 3 movies. Yes, we're all cool with Aunt May knowing his secret identity. We're totally fine with that. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole other rant, but yeah, also, stop making Aunt May, about to die, constantly. I hate saying it like that. I do hate saying it like that, but we kind of like seeing Aunt May being able to do stuff, being able to, handle stuff. And yeah, in this movie, Aunt May knows all about Peter Parker. She knows the entrance to his secret lab that's full of, the spider gear and the special spider.
She's like the Alfred of the, the universe.
At the end of this movie, when Miles finally gets that moment which he's like, yes, I am going to go and I am going to be Spider-Man, and he goes back to Spidey's headquarters, she's just sitting there with a cup of tea what took you so long? Yes, that's the Aunt May we want to see. But yeah, she was great in here. Also, the surprise villain, there is someone working at Alchemex, which is cool to see Alchemex in here. Because they're not, they're not quite like AIM or S.H.I.E.L.D. or any of the other weird secret organizations in Marvel, but they are big for Spider-Man, especially for the post-credit stinger in here. But yeah, the scientist that was working in there that Miles sees video of at the beginning of this movie talking about parallel universes, when it's revealed that she's evil, and she takes off the lab coat, and he goes, what's your name? And she says her last name is Octavius. I was like, I love the fact that they did not have to stop and introduce Doc Ock in here. Even when it's a completely different version of Doc Ock.
And she's like, my enemies call me Doc Ock. It was my friends call me, Lydia, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, Pete goes, do your friends call you Doc Ock? My friends actually call me Lydia. My enemies call me Doc Ock. And yeah, she is actually one of my favorite versions of Doc Ock. Because yeah, Doc Ock is this big pompous windbag in the comics. It's that's fun, that's nice for a little while. She's actually fun, because she's like a science nerd, and she seems like she should not be a villain. So when she's acting all fun and bubbly, and then being a supervillain, it's ooh, I like that combination in there. So yeah, I thought that was great, and yeah, it was just, man, it just felt so good that Doc Ock shows up here, and they did not have to stop and turn to everybody and go, Doc Ock is a villain of Spider-Man, everybody. We all know it. The moment we see the arms coming out, we all get that's the thing. Got it. But yeah, they had their own Sinister Six in this movie. They had Kingpin, Green Goblin, the Prowler, Doc Ock, Tombstone, and Scorpion shows up in here. They did not have, they had the Sinister Six in a movie. The thing that Sony has been trying for years to do. Sony has been trying ever since Amazing Spider-Man 2 to make a Sinister Six movie. Not even have Sinister Six in a movie. They wanted to make a lead up to them having their own movie. They did it in this film, and they didn't have to make a big deal of it. They just realized, oh, people accept the fact that that superheroes probably have multiple supervillains. Ta-da! Was it that freaking hard already? That's what I've been saying that the Marvel Netflix shows needed to do forever, which that's never going to happen because they're all getting canceled now. But yeah, I've been sick of the Marvel Netflix shows just going well, we need to spend an entire season introducing one villain. It's no, you don't. You can spend a season introducing one villain, but you can have them fight multiple other people throughout the course of it to try and keep it from being so freaking boring. So yeah, I think that this show did a fantastic job with all that. Let's see, any other spoilery things in here?
Well, I guess maybe the reason why Kingpin is...
Oh, yeah. It was real clear to me in the beginning, because I don't remember the exact line that he said in the beginning, but it was he's looking into alternate realities where he can possibly find his wife and kid. All right, got it. But then there's the moment in which there's the flashback, and his wife and kid come in and see him beating Spider-Man to death. What are you doing? What's happening? Because apparently they had no idea about his life of crime. And then they just ran out, and I was like, oh, I thought they were dead. So they just divorced you and ran away, and now they're in hiding or something. Okay, it seems kind of weird to try and search an alternate reality. Oh no.
Yeah, they got in a car accident.
They got jackknifed by a car, and it was brutal.
Yeah, whenever there's a death in this movie, it is brutal.
I am stunned by what they got away with in this film. When Spider-Man dies in here, when Miles' universe's version of Peter Parker dies, I thought, again, he was going to get, like, put into the beam, and then he just, like, disappears or dissolves, and then maybe at the end it's like, oh, he might still be alive out there somewhere, and Miles has to now go and search for him.
That's the sequel, Bayers.
That's the sequel. No.
Nope.
You see him, there's like, Miles, you gotta trust me, kid. You gotta do this for me. You gotta make the promise that you'll save us all. And it's like, damn, there's a lot of weight to put on this kid. But it also provides Miles with a lot of motivation, and it makes you realize how vulnerable Miles is, because it makes you look at him and go, he's just a kid. He can't deal with all this stuff. Which that's something that when you're dealing with kid Spider-Man, whether it be Miles, whether it be Peter, whether it be any version of a kid Spider-Man, that's something you need to have come up at some point. This might be too much for a kid, but he's going to step up and he's going to do it. But he dies, not because he's like just beaten up and bruised from all that, but because Kingpin comes up to him and Spidey still smack talks him there at the end. And he just lifts his fist up and bam!
And smashes it.
And then you just see like a wide shot, so you don't see what happens to Peter's body, but you see like the cracks in the ground. It's like, oh shit, his chest is like concaved right now.
It's like, I was surprised there wasn't like a huge like blood splatter or anything. Like
that would have been if this was a DC film. Yeah, man, I was shocked they got away with that. But then, okay, last big thing to spoil in here, when his Uncle Aaron gets revealed to be the Prowler. In the comics, Uncle Aaron, when he learns that his nephew is Spider-Man, he's like, yeah, okay, great. You gotta work with me, kid. You gotta do evil criminal shit. Otherwise, I'm telling your parents about all this. Like, he basically becomes a big villain for him. He becomes this guy who's like, I could ruin your whole life at any moment, but, you know, I want you to come and work with me. Come join the dark side, kid. No, when he reveals to the Prowler that he's the Spider-Man guy, you can actually tell that Aaron has, like, no idea what to do with that. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, God, kid, I don't know. And then Kingpin just shoots Prowler in the back.
Yeah.
Like, instantly. And I just looked at that.
Like, you hesitated, so...
Yeah, like, he didn't even, like, tell Kingpin on the radio, like, I can't do it or anything. He's like, he just hesitates, so Kingpin kills him. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he has a death moment in here, and it is heartbreaking. Like, he gives a speech there at the end. Our dog is down here. That's who I'm paying right now. But yeah, he gives a little speech to Miles at the end. And it is like on that Uncle Ben, great power comes great responsibility level. This movie nailed it. Man, I am so close to bumping this up to a 9. Sorry, hiccup. I'm so close to bumping this up to a 9. I'm going to stick with my 8.5, but there's some 9, 10 level moments in this movie. But yeah, really, really enjoy this film. Don't know if there's anything else really worth spoiling other than just going to like Easter eggs. Oh, actually, the end credit sequence.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, let me just ask you, aside from when they were just making fun of the meme, do you know what any of that meant?
There's gonna be a sequel, and there's gonna be a Spider-Man in like the future to come around, or...
Close enough, you got it. Okay. Again, I have to look at some of these things in here and goes like, okay, I enjoyed that. Do the people who aren't comic book fans enjoy that? Yeah. Yeah, at the end of this, like, you just saw this, like, thing blipping around, and I was like, I don't know what that is. Sony, how are you going to screw this up? How are you going to drop the ball at the last second here? Because if there's anybody I would trust to do that, it's Sony. But I kept looking at that, and then she goes, here you go, Miguel. And I went, wait. Yeah, because I know that name. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man from the year 2099. And yeah, we're getting Spider-Man 2099 in there. But he gets the wrist thing. Like, he actually makes the reality jumping wrist thing that they had in Spider-Verse, so that now they can actually go from reality to reality, which kind of bums me out again, because it means that the sequel will not again be a Miles Morales sequel, but a Spider-Verse sequel. And it's like, well, there's even more Spider people. And it's like, okay, I kind of just want a Miles movie now. But yeah, so they're making a Spider-Verse sequel, but actually, you know what they need to do? You know what they need to do? Cut all this live action shit. Just like the upcoming Kraven movie you have planned, no one gives a shit at all about a Kraven movie. The upcoming Morbius film, no one gives a shit at all. Dedicate all your time and resources into the animated Spider-Man movies. And you can keep the Venom thing going because it made money. Fine. There's a very...
Maybe do like a Venom cartoon or something.
Venom would have been better as a cartoon.
Honestly...
Listen, would you have accepted Tom Hardy climbing into a lobster tank more if it was animated?
Maybe.
Real talk? Yeah, I think we all would have. I think all of the what are you saying, Venom? We gotta eat people? Yeah, Eddie, we gotta eat people. That would have been way better as a cartoon.
And honestly, I really do enjoy like Sony's animation. I mean, this movie is great. They also did they also animated Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is one of my favorite movies. The animation of that is gorgeous. So yeah,
they've got good. Like, listen, so they don't always hire the best writers, but they get some of the best animators out there. So yeah, this is what you need to do. Just forget all that live action shit. Marvel has got your Spider-Man live action stuff all tied up there, and you get cuts of that profit without you having to lift a finger for it. You got a sweet ride going on right here. However, Marvel ain't touching Disney ain't touching any of their animated stuff. Disney ain't making any animated superhero things, and Disney ain't making any video game things. But you got that kick-ass Spider-Man video game. You got this kick-ass Spider-Man animated film. Just say, listen, we are going to have our own Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it's going to be animated. And video games. We're going to build a video game universe for the Marvel stuff. And we're going to build an animated universe with all these characters. And I bet you, if you make this work long enough, Disney might actually go, all right, tell you what. You let us keep full on 100% all of the Spider-Man rights as far as live action goes. We'll rent out to you some of our other characters for you to do animated stuff with. Just saying, that could be a sweet gig there. But yeah, just make the animated stuff and then make a Miles Morales standalone film, then make a Spider-Verse standalone film. Make them separate things, and then Miles Morales can be in Spider-Verse. Absolutely, you should have Miles in the Spider-Verse thing. But also just give us a Miles film in there. But yeah, I would love to see both those films. I don't want to see another Miles Spider-Verse merged together kind of movie. I want them to now have like their own, like, have this be a thing where two different franchises split out of it.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's like, I feel like just having a Miles Morales movie kind of be like a step down because there is just like so much wackiness and craziness going on when the universes collide and everything.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Because I think that even when the universes aren't colliding and stuff, I think this movie had a great art style to it. I think it had a great tone to it. Like Miles just going down the street talking to everyone and slapping up the stickers up there. I love that stuff. Because I've always said Spidey is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's called that for a reason because he's the guy in your neighborhood. Have Miles just explore his neighborhood in these films.
I mean, fair enough. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they absolutely nailed that tone before all the Spider-Verse stuff comes in here. So yeah, I would love to see them just. And again, like I said, if you make a separate Spider-Verse thing, put Miles in there. Miles is great. Hey man, it's just like the Marvel Avenger films. You can have Iron Man in the Avengers and in his own movies. You can have Cap in his thing in there. And then, if this gets real popular, have Spider-Gwen have an animated film come out. Keep going with that.
Give Spider-Man his own cartoon series.
Oh, yeah, man. Because, yeah, doesn't Sony, like, rent out, like, some of their stuff on to be animated shows on Cartoon Network?
I think so.
Because, yeah, didn't they do the Lego movie?
I don't remember.
I think they did the Lego movie,
Maybe.
which means that they do, because Unikitty has her own cartoon. But, yeah, man, have Sony be behind a Spider-Ham cartoon. Yeah. Man, okay, so, anyway.
I just want to, like, add one more thing.
Go for it.
Like, when, basically, like, Miles was stuck in his room because he couldn't go with the other Spider-Man because he didn't have his shit together, and his dad was talking to him on the other side of the door, and he's like, "You've got that spark." And it's like, yeah, like, anyone can be Spider-Man, but at the same time, you are still your own person.
That's what I've said. Spider-Man is the everyman, but not every man is the same. But it's almost like, you know, that meme where it's like they took the like bro handshake thing and they've now like quintupled out and it's like multiple arms just grabbing each other. that's kind of what Spider-Man is. That's kind of what writing in Everyman is like. Every single one of those arms is different. Every single one of those arms are doing their own thing, but then they've got like that one thing in the middle that they're all in common for. They're all shared around. And yeah, like Miles, like just trying to get by. Miles just trying to figure out his stuff. That's what the Everyman is. Someone who's just trying to figure out their life. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's got that, but he is still his own thing. So yeah, this movie did capture that incredibly well. But yeah, so big recommendation. Absolutely loved it. We've got one more review coming up today or tomorrow, depending on when this goes up, for Mortal Engine. Was that it? Mortal Engine.
I
keep wanting to call it Mortal Coil.
I keep wanting to call it Mortal Kombat.
Just giant cities punching each other.
That's basically what this movie's about.
Yeah, we have. You just got back from seeing that. I have not asked you what you think about that, so I have no idea if you liked it or not. So tune in for that review. You'll see my live reaction, and this might be like a very heated debate between the two of us, or who knows. Anyway, come back for that later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.